Om Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. You alone are my mother and my father. You alone are my relative and my friend. You alone are my wisdom and my wealth. You alone are my all in all, O God of gods. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of today's talk is meaning and practice of Hindu worship. We're going to see two things today. One is the meaning, and the other one is the practice. Of course, the subject is vast. When you speak of Hindu worship, it's like there's no end to it. There are so many things that the Hindus worship. You buy a new car, you do puja for the car. You buy a scooter, you do puja for the scooter. You buy a bicycle, so whatever it is, there is worship for that. So we're going to focus specifically, just to give you an idea of how the Hindu worship works. What are the aspects that are involved when the Hindus worship? So we'll take the puja, the worship that we perform at the Vedanta societies, in a very simplified way, just to give an idea of what's going on when the Swamis sit down to worship in a formal setting. So let us start with the meaning. What's the meaning? Why do the Hindus worship? There are two fundamental reasons why they worship. One is because they have desires. Kamya karma means I am doing something because I want something in exchange. In the life of Sri Ramakrishna, you find that his disciple Mathur once asked Sri Ramakrishna to offer a flower to the Divine Mother. And Sri Ramakrishna offered it. But later he found out the reason why he asked him. He had a pending lawsuit, and he believed if Sri Ramakrishna offers the flower, he will win the lawsuit. So like that, we all have desires. And the Hindus in particular, they will go to God. Yes, you have to work hard, you have to do your part, but then they worship God for the fulfillment of their desires. It's very common. I remember in one of our Vedanta societies, once the Swami undertook a project that took longer than expected and took more money than expected. So the center ran into debt. And at that point, when things were not looking very good, I visited that center. And I stayed for a couple of days. And I noticed that after meditation every morning, the Swami was playing Lakshmi Stotra. So Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth. So the center is in debt. Why bother Sri Ramakrishna? You have Lakshmi. So you have the goddess of wealth. So it's very common in the Hindu psyche that you have these gods and goddesses. You can worship them if you have some desire. It is not looked down upon. It is accepted. It's part of life. If you have a problem, you go to your parents. So if the Hindus have a problem, they go to God and they worship. Solve my problem. So that is one reason why they worship. The other type of worship is nishkama, without desire. It seems to be a contradiction because behind every action there is desire. When you analyze whatever we do in our lives, it's because there is an underlying desire. Even when we breathe, It's because we want to be alive. So like that, every action has a desire behind it. So how come they call it desireless worship, nishkama? Well, there is a desire behind it, but it's the desire to attain God. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that should not be considered an ordinary desire, because it does not create more bondage, more attachment, more suffering. When we want to attain God, it's just the opposite. It makes us free. So that is why it's called nishkama, desireless. Desireless in the sense of ordinary desire, in the sense that I don't want anything from this world. I don't want anything material. I don't want success. I don't want to achieve anything. All I want is God. So there is a desire, but it's called desireless because it's a spiritual desire. It doesn't have any negative consequences. So what is the idea behind this worship without desire? The idea is all of us are bound souls. We are not free. What is our bondage? We are souls that are imprisoned in a body and a mind, and we cannot come out. It's like a fish in a fish bowl. It could be in the ocean, swimming freely, but it's not. So in the same way, Vedanta says, we are pure spirit. We are not bound by time, space, matter, or thought. But somehow, we don't know how or why, we find ourselves imprisoned in one body and one mind. So when you go to the root of it, the reason why they worship from the spiritual point of view is to get rid of this bondage, to get rid of this attachment to the body and the mind, and to attain union with God. That is the underlying idea of worship without desire. You may be worshiping an image of Mother Kali. It is true, you are bowing down to the image, you are making offerings, but the underlying purpose is, I want to be free. I want to attain the highest spiritual state. It is even beyond Mother Kali. We will see that. So the problem is, Vedanta says, we are pure spirit, and the ultimate reality, the true nature of God is pure spirit. So God is formless, God is nameless, God is timeless, spaceless. Now, if you say, okay, I want to devote myself to God, how can you devote yourself to that God that is nameless, formless, timeless? How do you approach it? What do you do? It seems to be so inaccessible, you cannot even think about it. It is inconceivable. So how do you interact with a God that is inconceivable? So Vedanta says, yes, it is true, our goal is to merge into that God, to regain the original state beyond name and form, time and space. But we need some help to get there. We are in this gross state in this world. How to bridge the gap between us and this ultimate reality. So the help comes in two forms. And here comes in the worship of the images. So one type of help is the avatar, the incarnation. So Jesus comes to this world, becomes a human being like us, and through him we have access to God. So you can say Buddha, Krishna, the Hindus believe there are many incarnations. So they all facilitate this journey from our present state to Brahman, to the ultimate reality. Sri Ramakrishna illustrated this with an example. He said, imagine there is a vast meadow before you, but there is a high wall hiding that meadow, so you cannot see it. Then you see a hole in the wall, and through that hole, you can see the infinite meadow as long as your eyes can reach. He says the avatar is the hole. So through Jesus Christ, through Krishna, through Buddha, through Ramakrishna, we can see the infinite. They pierce the veil of Maya, that wall made of matter and thought. Through them, we can see God. So that is one type of help. The other type of help is the gods and goddesses. Now, this is a concept that may be hard for Westerners to understand fully. It takes time because it's kind of alien to our culture. But for the Hindus, it's very common. They are born with Ganesh and Shiva and Kali, and Durga has 10 arms, no problem. She has 10 arms. There's nothing wrong with that. So they are born with this idea that these gods and goddesses exist. A Westerner has to develop that faith if they want to. So how to understand these gods and goddesses that are not the avatar, but nevertheless they exist and they can be worshipped? Swami Nirakarananda, in his introduction to the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he has explained this very nicely. He says, "The innumerable gods and goddesses of the Hindu religion are the human aspects of the indescribable and incomprehensible spirit, projected by it, by the spirit, for the benefit of the finite human mind." So these gods are real. God invented these gods, just like he invented the whole universe. And these gods are available to us if we want to worship them. They are ready to help us. They are available. So you have the avatars, but you also have these gods. Mother Kali may not embody herself amongst us as a human being, but there is a reality called Mother Kali that exists, that is real, and interacts with human beings who approach her. There is a reality called Vishnu in the same way, a reality called Shiva. They are not avatars, and yet they are a big help if you worship them. Sri Ramakrishna used to interact with these gods and goddesses on a daily basis. For him, they were more real than this world. You will see when you read the gospel, he'll be talking with people, the room is full of people, and he's telling, "Mother, please be quiet, I want to talk to them." He's talking to the Divine Mother, to Mother Kali. Nobody can see her. Everybody's waiting to see what Sri Ramakrishna is going to tell them. But he says, "Mother, please be quiet." "Oh, you want to show off your sari? Okay, but now please be quiet." So it seems like the Divine Mother was showing off her sari. So it's a very sweet dialogue and relationship, but we don't know it. We cannot see what he sees. We cannot experience what he is experiencing. For him, it is a reality. Mother Kali is there. Once, a new devotee came to Sri Ramakrishna, young boy, and he wanted to know what kind of personality he had. His name was Purna. So what did he do to find out what kind of person he was spiritually? Interesting what he did. He offered mentally a bilba leaf to that person, mentally, and it was rejected. Then he understood he has an element of Vishnu. That is how Sri Ramakrishna described it. So he's offering mentally to that person a leaf that is normally offered to Shiva. The offering was rejected. Then he understands, okay, he has an element of Vishnu instead of Shiva. Why does he want to know that? Well, probably he wants to guide him in his spiritual life. And if he has an element of Shiva, it will be one way. If he has an element of Vishnu, it will be another way. Now, these are esoteric things that we don't quite understand. We don't understand at all, rather, how a person can have an element of a certain god or goddess. But Sri Ramakrishna could understand that. So you will see some devotees, they are very devoted to Shakti, the Divine Mother. Why? You could say they have an element of the Divine Mother in them. They have this affinity with that reality. Mother Kali embodies a spiritual reality. It's not just a name and form. Same with Vishnu, same with Shiva. They embody a special type of Godhead that appeals to some type of seekers. So some people will gravitate towards Shiva, and some people will go towards Kali. And the Hindus have no problem with that. So Swami Nikhilananda continues with this idea. He says, these gods and goddesses understand and appreciate human love and emotion. They help people realize their secular and spiritual ideals, and ultimately enable them to attain liberation from the miseries of phenomenal life. So, these gods and goddesses are accessible to us. It's not like the transcendental spirit. And they help us realize our secular and spiritual ideas. Just what we said earlier. If you have a problem, go to God. I've seen in India, in our schools, we have, big schools in our mission, and the students live there and study there, etc. And they will worship Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, because that is the goddess for the students. And they will have a picture of Mother Saraswati with their books, and they will pray. So before an exam, you have to pray to Mother Saraswati. If you pray to Lakshmi, it will not work. God will get confused. You want me to pass the exam, but you're praying to the goddess of wealth. It will not work. So if you want to pass the exam, you pray to Saraswati. If you want success, you pray to Ganesha. Ganesha is Vigna Vinayaka, the remover of all the obstacles. So like that, you have many types of different gods and goddesses for different purposes. And then you have also God and goddess that you approach only because you want to love them. You don't want anything from them. That is also there. The main deities like Shiva, Vishnu, Kali, most people only want freedom. That is why they worship these gods. So the Swami finishes this idea by saying, the source of light, intelligence, wisdom, and strength is the one alone from whom comes the fulfillment of desire. Yet, as long as a person is bound by their human limitations, they cannot but worship God through human forms. One must use human symbols, but the name ultimately leads to the nameless, the form to the formless, the word to the silence. The gods gradually merge in the one God. So this is what is sometimes difficult to understand for Westerners. How can you believe in your heart of hearts that God is really formless, transcendental, and at the same time worship all these gods and goddesses? For us, it's one or the other. It cannot be both. It's irrational. But for the Hindu, no problem, because these gods came from the formless, and they will merge in the formless again. There's no contradiction at all. That is why Hinduism is the most Catholic of faiths, accepting all, because it says they are all the same, all different faiths. They are aspects of that same reality adapted to this world. You know, Shankaracharya, he was the main expounder of Advaita Vedanta, non-duality. When you read Shankara's books, you will read only about this. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. The world is unreal. Again and again, so many examples. The snake and the rope, etc., etc., etc. Very dry, intellectual, philosophical exposition of non-duality. So when you think of Shankara, you think of that. But he also composed many hymns to gods and goddesses, beautiful hymns. And he introduced the worship of the images in his own monasteries, which continue to this day. It's called Pancha Ayatana Puja, the worship of the 5 deities. So you can see the wisdom of Shankara, that although he was a non-dualist, he introduced the worship of images in his own monasteries so that his followers can worship God with form. And he's very Interesting how he arranged it. So he said, worship these 5 deities: Shiva, Vishnu, the Divine Mother, Ganesh, and Surya, or the sun god. So how do you worship 5 images at the same time? Most people will have their favorite god or goddess. So Shankaracharya said, you put your main god in the center of the altar and the other 4 on the sides. So are you a worshiper of Shakti? Okay, Divine Mother in the center. And then Vishnu, Shiva, Ganesh, Surya. Are you a worshiper of Vishnu? Okay, Vishnu in the center. And then the other 4 on the sides. So he not only wanted to make worship practical, he wanted to make it possible. Because otherwise, if you don't have a name and a form, you cannot worship, really speaking. But he also wanted to harmonize the different sects of Hinduism so that there is no rivalry, no misunderstanding. When you are worshiping all 5 gods, there is no room for quarrel. The worshipper of Shakti, the Divine Mother, is also worshiping Vishnu. The worshipper of Shiva is also worshiping Ganesh. So it is beautiful how he understood human psychology and adapted to the needs of the people. But still, his philosophy hasn't changed. It is non-duality. God alone is real, and everything else is unreal. Brahman alone is true, everything else is false. Like the snake and the rope. We see the snake, there is only a rope. We see multiplicity, there is only one spirit. And yet, because we see multiplicity, because we see the snake, he says, okay, worship the image. And don't quarrel about it. Worship 5 images. So it's very interesting to see how Shankara adapted to the human needs to worship God. So this is to understand the meaning of the worship. Why the Hindus worship God? We saw that, first of all, for ordinary reasons, because somebody has a problem, somebody has a desire, and they worship God. But the spiritual reason is because they want to be free. They want to attain the highest, the ultimate reality, pure spirit. And to do that, yes, they worship God with form. There's no problem. So this is the underlying principles behind Hindu worship. Now we come to the practice. So as we said, we will just see the basic points of the worship we do here, but I think you will find some interesting ideas that we have 2 books on the worship of Sri Ramakrishna as we perform it. But if you buy the book without any introduction, anybody will be very confused because it's just too much Sanskrit, too many things that it just doesn't seem to make sense. So we're going to try to go through it, make it as easy as possible, with as little Sanskrit as possible, and just to have an idea of what it entails to do the Hindu worship. So we have distinguished 7 stages or aspects of the worship: prayer, purification, protection, consecration, invocation, offerings, self-surrender. These are the 7 aspects we hopefully will cover today. So it starts with prayer. So there is an opening prayer. When the Swami sits down, they offer incense, they light the candle, and they, with folded hands, they will say a prayer. Om Sarva Mangala Mangalyam, etc. So the prayer is, let all actions be done after offering salutations to Narayana, who is the all-auspicious, adorable God. Very simple prayer. Let all actions be done after saluting God. So it is a reminder. We are told by our teachers again and again, try to think of God as much as possible. It is a standard teaching. Everybody gets that teaching. Try to think of God. But in practice, we are trying our best to forget God. So that is the sad reality. So at least when you start some work, remember God. That much we can do. That is why we say we say grace before meals. We have to eat every day. Okay, we say grace, we'll remember God. At least that much. In many of our Vedanta societies in India, and even in the West also, they will also remember God at the end of the meal. So nobody leaves the table, and when everybody's done, they say, Jai Sri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. That means victory to God. So you say a prayer before meals and also at the end of the meal. The idea is we should somehow remember God in our daily lives. Another common advice that we get, at least I got more than once, is try to think of God before you fall asleep. And try to remember God when you wake up. Very simple. When we fall asleep every night, we lose consciousness. We are dead to the world. And the world ceases to exist to us, is as good as being dead. So, can we think of God at that time, just before we fall asleep? And then again, when we wake up, hey, the world is back. It's as if I am born again. Try to think of God. Let it be the first thought when we wake up. Now, you may say, well, I don't have control over my mind. You know, before falling asleep, I may think of the news. I watch the news before going to bed, and I'm thinking of Ukraine and Gaza or whatever. So, well, there are some tricks that we can do. There are some things we can help ourselves. For instance, if you have a picture of Jesus or whoever is your chosen ideal, your God, by your bedside table, on your bedside table, before you turn off the light, you turn to that picture and you pray. It will be the last thing you see in the day. It may not be your last thought, but you make sure that today God was the last thing I saw. With that image, I'm going to bed. And when I wake up again, before I turn on the light, I turn to the picture, open my eyes, turn on the light. It is God that is the first thing I see today. So it's a very auspicious way to start and finish the day. I start with the idea of God, looking at God, and I finish the day looking at God. So the thoughts may not be under my control. I may wake up thinking of anything, who knows? But at least my eyes will see God first. That much control I have. So, although we are going to start the worship, still, this is the first thing that is done. Remember that before each work, we have to remember God. It's a reminder. So that's the first opening prayer. Remember God before any work, including puja, including worship. Then there is another important prayer right at the beginning that says, Om apavitra pavitro va sarvava sthangatu piva yasmarit pundarikaksham sabhyahya bhyantara shuchihi. That means pure or impure, in whatever situation we may be. If we remember God, we will become purified inside and outside. So it's a very important prayer. It says, whatever you have done, whatever you may be, whatever condition, whatever you may think of yourself, now you have remembered God, you have become pure within and without. There's no impurity in you. Forget whatever you did. It's gone. Now you remember God, you are pure. So this is a very important prayer because we are going to invoke God's presence in our heart. That is part of the worship. If I feel I am unworthy, I am impure, how can God come to my heart? He can only come to the pure heart. So for the time being, when I sit for prayer, I will utter these mantras and imagine that we have become completely pure. Why? Because I have this faith. I have taken God's name. Now I am pure. Forget about whatever happened in the past. There is a saying in Vedanta that says, Devo bhutva devam yajet. Becoming divine, you should worship the divine. Devo bhutva, having become divine, devam yajet. One should worship the divine. If you think of yourself as a puny, hopeless sinner who has no hope, you cannot worship God. You have to think of yourself as a child of God, perfect, pure, free. Then you can effectively worship God. Swami Vivekananda used to say the same thing. He used to say, if you have become dirty with mud, you cannot wash it away with more mud. You need clean water to wash away the mud. If you have done something wrong and you think of yourself as a sinner, you will not be able to get rid of it by thinking, I'm a sinner. It's like adding more mud to the mud. So the solution is to think, I am free. I am divine. I am a child of God. Forget about the past. That is the positive attitude. Sri Ramakrishna used to say the same thing. He used to say, the rascal that says day and night, I'm a sinner, they really become a sinner. And those who say boldly, I am free, I am divine, they really become free. He said, we have to have that burning faith. What? I had repeated God's name? How can I be a sinner? If I have faith in God, how can I still be a sinner when I'm thinking of God? So this prayer is for that, to get this idea right at the start, that I am spiritual, I am pure. That is why I can worship God. That was the first aspect, prayer. The second aspect is called purification, shuddhi. So, first you utter this prayer, that I am pure, but now you want to work a little harder, not just saying it once. So you have to repeat many mantras, touch different parts of the body, and that is supposed to purify individual parts of the body and the mind. So you go more deeply into the idea that I am becoming pure. I am becoming pure. Not only me. Many things have to be purified. Because the idea is we are going to worship God with ordinary things, ordinary flowers, ordinary food, ordinary human being worshiping. What we will do is we will purify all of these things, and then they become special, and we can offer them to God. So it's called Panchashuddhi. You purify 5 things: the worshipper, the place where it is, where it happens, the utensils of the worship, and the mantra, which is an interesting concept. You purify the mantra that you utter. And the image you are going to worship, you also purify. Because you may say, hey, you have the image of Christ. Why do you need to purify it? Because you are going to ask that power that is Jesus Christ to manifest especially in that picture. So that is more than a picture. That is part of the worship. To be able to invoke the presence of Jesus Christ in that image of Jesus, you have to first purify it. So it's an interesting concept. So I will not go into the details, but for instance, for the worshiper, you purify your hands, you take a flower, you smell it, you whirl it around, you throw it away, your hands have become purified, karashuddhi. Then you have pranayama. Pranayama, control of the breath. That means you're purifying your psychic energy. Your mind and your vital force is purified when you control the breath. So for a few minutes, you control the breath. There is a way to do it. Then you have bhuta shuddhi, the elements that constitute the body. They say earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So there is a certain meditation that we do with certain mantras, and we imagine that the body, physical and mental body, they have dried up, burnt up, and become divine. So now I have a divine body. In that divine body, God can come. It has become purified. So this is the purification of the worshipper. Then of the place. You take some water, the palm of your hand, you drop it with some mantras, and you say that now the ground has become purified. Then the asana, the seat. Again, you offer some flowers with mantras. Now the seat where I sit has become pure. Then the mantra. Now this is interesting. How do you purify the mantra? It is not a physical object. And why did it become impure to begin with? So the idea is we are using the alphabet and the sounds to talk nonsense all day long. So it has become impure, so to say. So before we utter the mantras to worship God, let us purify the alphabet so that the sounds are new, are fresh, and we are uttering this mantra to God. It will please God. So forget about all the nonsense we said. We are going to purify the alphabet so that the mantra is nice and fresh. When we utter it, these sounds will please God. So how do you do that? How do you purify the mantra? Well, there is a way. There is a sound, aim. That's a mantra especially devoted to the guru, the teacher. And it contains Saraswati Shakti, the power of the goddess of wisdom, of enlightenment. So you use this mantra, aim, with the letters of the alphabet, and you thereby purify the letters of the alphabet. So it goes like this. Aim, kam, aim, kam, cham, aim, cham, etc. So you're putting the letter, then the mantra aim, and then the letter again. To give you an example in English, then you will understand how it works. The equivalent in English would be A, aim, A, B, aim, B, C, aim, C, D, aim, D. So by putting aim between two A's, you have purified the end of the sound A and the beginning of the sound A. A, aim, A. You make sure that A has been purified. Interesting concept. So now when you are done with that, mantra shuddhi, the mantra has become, the letters, the alphabet, the Sanskrit alphabet has become purified. So it shows how deeply the Hindus go into these things. Then you worship the items of worship and the image you sprinkle holy water, and with certain mantras, you will purify all the utensils, whatever is to be offered, whatever is going to be used in the puja, and the image of worship also. That is the second stage. That comes the third aspect, protection. So we saw prayer, we saw purification, now we see protection. Protection is interesting also. What do we mean by protection? You see, the Hindu worship is, you can say, very esoteric. Especially the way we perform it. It comes from the tantric tradition. And there is a big belief of forces, negative and positive, all around us. So you want to create a positive energy for the worship. And you want to get rid of any negative energy. So how do you do that? Well, first, there is Dwara Puja, the worship of the deities of the door. Now, you may say, what? Do we have deities guarding our door? Well, maybe. Huh? So you start by worshiping the deities of the door. You sprinkle some water with mantras. You offered some flowers with mantras, and you have worshipped the deities of the door. When you think about it, the door separates the secular world from the place of worship. There is a different vibration. That is the world. And this is the monastery. Different thoughts, different activities, different vibrations. You want to preserve that. You want to protect that. So when you think from that point of view, it makes sense. This is the partition between the external world and this place that is exclusively devoted to worship. One name for the deities of the door is Kshetrapala. Kshetra means field. Pala means protector. Protectors of the field. So Kshetra means like a plot of land. So the area, you can say the perimeter of the place of worship, you're protecting. But you could also think of energy field. The protectors of the energy field, not just the geographical area. You want to protect the energy of the place. So you worship the deities that are at the door, so to say. And it's a common theme in Hindu worship. In the Bengali Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you will find right at the beginning, M has a long description of the temple complex in Dakshineshwar. You will not find that in the English translation. So in one part, he's describing the Nat Mandir. It's a building opposite the temple of Mother Kali. And it's just a covered area with columns, no walls, and they had gatherings there, performances or whatever. So M says that on top of that building, the Nat Mandir, there is a statue of Shiva, Bhairava, with his companions, Nandi and Bringi. So he says, whenever Sri Ramakrishna would go to bow down to the temple of Mother Kali, he would first salute Bhairava with folded hands, as if taking his permission to go into the temple of Kali. So this Bhairava is the guardian deity. He is like a standing guard. And Sri Ramakrishna is acknowledging that and say, please let me come in. And then he goes in. So it's not a strange concept in Hinduism, these deities of the door. Then so that is the deities of the door. Then you have Bhutapasaranam, removing negative forces. There may be already negative forces for whatever reason. Somebody may be sad, somebody may be depressed, who knows? We don't know what's going in people's minds and the energy they release. So there may be some negativity in this place of worship. Let us remove it. So you take some rice in your right hand, you ring the bell on the left hand, and you're supposed to remove the bhutas. Maybe they're goblins, maybe they're little demons, maybe they're energies, who knows? So there is Naracha Mudra. This is the arrow mudra. So you take some rice and you repeat some mantras and you throw the rice like you're throwing arrows on these entities or negative forces. So this is part of the ritual. You are removing the negativity, whatever negativity there is. You want only spiritual energy in the venue. Then another part of the protection is removing obstacles from the ground level, intermediate level, and heavenly level. Like, may all obstacles, all negativity, this theme comes again and again. All negativity should go away, only good energy should be here. So there are certain mantras, we do like this, we sprinkle water, and this negativity is supposed to go away. So these obstacles, they are supposed to be of three kinds: adhyatmika, adibhautika, adidaivika. So there are obstacles arising from ourselves, my body and mind, disease, mental and physical. They are obstacles. I want to get rid of them. Then there is obstacles from other beings, other human beings, and wild animals, insects, whatever it is. That's the second type of obstacle we want to remove. And the third one is earthquake, pandemic, tsunami. These things are beyond our control. You can say it is heavenly obstacles. They are providence saying that so-and-so will have a car crash. It is not perhaps our fault. Somebody hits us. So these are the three types of obstacles. We want to get rid of all of them. So there are certain mantras and rituals so that all these types of obstacles go away. And there is the puja can go on without any hitch. So we have seen prayer, purification, protection. Next one is consecration. So we have become pure. That's not enough. You have to become godlike. You have to become consecrated. So there are certain rituals and mantras to consecrate the worshipper. Imagine that there is somebody very important you want to invite to your house. This is a very important person. And what do you do first? You clean your house. If your house is dirty, it would be embarrassing. So that is purification, shuddhi. Is that enough? No. You want to make an impression. So you know what food they like, you know what music they like, you know what color they like. So you will make all arrangements in your house so that that person is very pleased. You have procured all the things they like. So this consecration is like that. You have become pure already, but that is not enough. You have to become godlike. It's somewhat similar to the Eucharist when the priest says certain words and the ordinary wine and bread becomes the flesh and blood of Christ. So this is the same thing. We say certain mantras and we become divine, not just pure. We become godlike. Why? Because in this godlike body, we will invoke the presence of God. So we have to make ourselves godlike. Then God will come to us. So how do we do that? It's called nyasa. Nyasa means identification, consecration. So you want to place on your body mantras to sanctify them. I'll give you an example because it's very elaborate, but you will get the idea. Suppose you want to do karanyasa, the consecration of the hands. So you have the mantra, Aim Ramakrishna. With that mantra, Aim Ramakrishna, you will consecrate your hands. So you will do Aim Ramakrishna. You will touch these fingers, you will say certain mantras, and you are placing this mantra on your hand. So it goes, Aim Angushtabhyam Namaha, Ram Tarjanibhyam Swaha, Mam Madhyamabhyam Vashat, Krim Anamikabhyam Hum, Shnam Kanishtabhyam Vashat. You have placed the mantra on your fingers. Then on your limbs of the body. Aim Hridayaya Namaha, you put Aim in your heart. Ram Shirase Swaha, you put Ram on your head. Mam Shikhaye Vashat, you put Ma on the back. Krim Kavachaya Hum, you put Kri on your sides. Shnam Netratrayaya Vashat, you put Shna on your eyes, including the third eye of wisdom. So you have put the mantra, Aim Ramakrishna, in your hands, in different parts of your body. It has become godlike. Now it has become identified with the mantra. Finally, you do total consecration. You take the main mantra of the worship, which is Om Aim Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, who is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. That is the important mantra, the Mula mantra, used for the worship of Sri Ramakrishna. Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, who is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. So you will do your whole body, gross and subtle. You will repeat this mantra, waving your hands. Om Aim Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. 3 times. So you can see how there is a sense of holiness when you do this. You are placing these holy mantras, holy sounds in different parts of your body, and your body becomes consecrated. It goes beyond just purification. So we saw prayer, purification, protection, consecration. We have to keep track, otherwise we'll get lost. Too many things. After consecration comes invocation. Okay, I have done all this hard work. Now we are ready to call God to our hearts. Let he or she come into our hearts. We are ready. We have done so much work, purifying, consecrating, protecting, etc. So now we are ready to invoke the presence of God, and there are rituals for that. You take a flower in a special mudra close to your heart, and you meditate on God. Then you put it on your head, and you imagine with certain meditations and mantras that God comes into your heart and is sitting there. And at that point, you worship God mentally. The same thing you will do outside, you first do in your heart, mentally. So you go through certain mantras and you imagine that you are offering all these things to Sri Ramakrishna. Even dance. You're supposed to offer dancing to Sri Ramakrishna, but mentally, not outside. So it says that the restlessness of the mind is the dance. So first, there are several stages when this invocation is done. You know, right at the beginning of the puja, you invoke the presence of the holy rivers of India, because the water you will use for worship has to be sanctified. You don't want tap water. You want Ganges water. And not only Ganges, you want all the 7 holy rivers. So Gangecha, Yamunecha, Eva, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmade, Sindhu, Kaveri. Jalesmin Sannidhin Kuru. May these 7 holy rivers be present in these waters. So that is how we invoke the presence of the holy waters of the rivers of India. So like that, there is more than one invocation. That one happens right at the beginning, and bringing God to our hearts comes later on, towards the end of the puja. Then, after we are done with the mental worship in our hearts, there is a certain ritual to bring God, so to say, from our hearts outside. And now you think that God is sitting in front of you in that image. So first you worship God in your heart, and then you bring God out with a certain ritual and mantras, and now God is in front of you. Now the external worship begins, the offerings. So far it has been preparation. And now you're ready to offer all the different things that you have. So that is number 6, the offerings. So prayer, purification, protection, consecration, invocation, bringing God down to our hearts and then outside. Now comes offerings. So this is, everybody can see this is happening when the Swamis are doing the offerings. They will offer water to wash the feet, water to rinse the mouth, water to bathe with different mantras. Then they will offer sandal paste, flowers, holy leaves. Then they will offer water to drink, food to eat. Then they will offer again water to rinse the mouth, and pushpanjali, a bunch of flowers. So like that, it varies from place to place and how elaborate they want to make the offerings. It can be a lot of things that you offer, or it can be just what I mentioned. You don't need anything fancy. Just what I mentioned is enough for a normal worship. Then the incense and the lamp also is part of the worship. So this is straightforward, the offerings. And finally comes self-surrender. You have worshiped God, but we said that our worship is nishkama. We don't have any desires. Now, there may be some subconscious desire. The mind is tricky. Sometimes we say, oh, I don't want anything. But maybe I want just to be praised by others. Who knows? So we want to make sure that with certain mantras, we make sure that I really don't want any result, consciously or unconsciously. Please, you take it. So we do japa, we repeat God's name. Then we take some water in our hands and we drop it on the floor with certain mantras, and we say, this is your result. I don't want this result. So we offer the result of the worship to God. Then we prostrate to God, and that's the end of the worship. That is called self-surrender, the final stage. So that was it. Basically, that is the meaning and practice of Hindu worship. We saw the 7 stages, roughly. They are not sequential and they are not full. I just gave you a little taste of what is done. There's so much more. There's so much more complex. But basically, you have one aspect is prayer, purification, protection, consecration, invocation, offerings, self-surrender. These are the 7 aspects we have distinguished in the worship. And then regarding the meaning, we saw that the Hindus worship ordinarily with some motive, but spiritually without any motive, nishkama. They just want to attain God. And attaining God means going beyond name and form, going beyond even the personal God. Attaining God means being free from even being human. We are not human, we are spirit. So, but to reach that stage, the Hindus, they understand they have to worship the name and form. It's like a compromise. It is a genuine love for the personal God. It is a genuine love, but the personal God stands for something else. Stands for the ultimate reality that we cannot reach. There is no difference between that ultimate reality, which is without form, without name, and the God with form. It is just for our own benefit that God has created all these different types of gods and goddesses so that we can reach that state of transcendental realization. So to put it in one sentence, the goal of Hindu worship is that the worshipper will merge in the worshipped and they become one. There is the Atman, the individual soul, and there is Brahman, the universal soul. Through worship, Atman and Brahman become one. God and the devotee become one. That is the harmonizing of the dualistic approach of God without form and the non-dualistic approach that everything is Brahman. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om peace, peace, peace. Now let's look at the announcements. Next Sunday, Swami Nishpapanandaji will speak on the application of bhakti to daily life. And as usual, there will be Zoom meeting with Swami Chaitananda, and there will be library meeting